Hey everybody, Mike Nazaruk here with you with a special podcast number 46 entitled My Thoughts About 9/11. So I'm sure every person that was alive on September 11th, 2001 remembers exactly where they were and what they were doing when that first jet airline crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City at 8:49 a.m. Excuse me. I was actually standing in my kitchen sink directly below where I'm sitting at right now, doing up the breakfast dishes and wondering how I was going to spend my day off on that beautiful September morning. My wife had just left to go to work, and my daughter was a block away at her kindergarten class at St. Rose School. And I was listening to the Today Show that was on a TV in the other room while washing those dishes. Then I heard Matt Lauer come on with this emergency announcement that a plane flew into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. I was like, what? What? So I stopped the dishes and went in the other room to watch. Now, I remember thinking, I wonder how that happened in today's world of modern aviation technology. And I no sooner thought that when I watched the second plane hit the South Tower. Then I thought, okay, this was planned. This is definitely an attack on us. As I watched in disbelief, another emergency announcement came by Lauer stated that a third jet airliner crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Okay, I was at total loss for words at that point as I stood with my jaw dropped in horror and disbelief. Then came another announcement. A fourth jet airliner crashed into a remote field in south central Pennsylvania, which was in Shanksville, a mere 60 miles southwest from where I'm sitting at right now. It was immediately speculated then by talking heads on TV that this all was the work of terrorists. Okay, do you think? As I remained standing in my living room, glued to the TV, St. Rose School called for me to go over and pick up my daughter. All classes were closing down for the day. Then my wife called to say her office was closing down for the day too, and she was on her way home. So I took the 3-minute walk over to the school to get my daughter. On the walk back home, I could see her little 5-year-old mind was deep in thought. When we got into the house, she asked, "What happened, Daddy? Why did they send everybody home from school?" And I replied, "Well, sweetheart, some very bad people who don't like us and don't like our country attacked us this morning. And the school thought it was a good idea for all of us to be together at home." Well, she went into deep thought mode again, then asked, "Well, why did they do that, Daddy? Aren't we nice people? And don't we have a nice country?" It was at that point my eyes had welled up with tears after those questions, knowing that from now on our nice country was never going to be the same for her or for her future, or for anybody's future for that matter. All I could muster up to say as I embraced her tight was, I don't know, baby. I really don't know. My wife then arrived home and we all embraced each other. We then spent the next couple hours huddled together in our living room, watching more details come out on TV. And I recall thinking, well, at least we're all home together in case those damn terrorists attack us anymore. Now, 3 days later on September 14th, St. Rose had their usual Friday morning children's mass, which parents were encouraged to attend as well. All the students were divided up into their grades and seated at the front in the front pews of the church. This was a special mass in memoriam to all those who were killed and were suffering from the terrorist attacks from 3 days prior. The church was lined on both sides with 25 American flags on each side aisle. Okay. It was another warm September day, and the windows were opened. And while I was in line to go up for communion, when I looked over and saw my daughter sitting quietly at the very end of one of those pews, just staring out the window, in deep thought mode once again. She was probably thinking about innocent things, like a normal 5-year-old girl would think, such as being home playing with her dolls and toys and stuff. Her little mind still hadn't come to grips with what happened to our country that would change it forever. I wish I had a photo of my little girl gazing out that church window. And on the way back down the aisle, going past her, I casually touched her head. She took her attention from staring out the window, looked up at me, and we exchanged smiles. After I go back to my pew, I thought of her staring out that window again, and I wept profusely. Later, after walking my daughter home, she just came out and asked me point blank, "Daddy, why did God let those bad people do those mean things to us?" And once again, I literally had no answer for her. All I could think was to say was the same answer I gave her inquiries a few days before. I don't know, baby. I really don't know. Now, fast forward 20 years to today, September 11th, 2021, and I still have no answer to that very same question. I can only speculate what God's reasons may have been to allow such an attack on our country, which took the lives of nearly 3,000 people. That's all anybody could do, and that is to speculate. Now, as I mentioned in a lot of my other podcasts, God has a reason for everything he does. And his reasoning goes way beyond any of our reasoning. There's no way we can even come close to figuring out that reasoning, simply because our realm of intelligence and understanding could never handle or compare to God's. And we actually have no business in even trying to figure that out. As I said, we can only speculate why God allowed that to happen 20 years ago today. But I do have a theory as to why God allowed this attack on us through the actions of evil people. And it is simply this. We were becoming too complacent with everything in our free American God-given society, especially with our sinful actions towards the Heavenly Father. We were taking all of his awesome blessings for granted and not giving him any credit or thanks for all that we had. Not only that, but we were continually, more and more, turning our backs to God. And he had to get our attention somehow. Have you noticed how much church attendance has increased since 9/11? And for the most part, has held those levels of attendance since then? But there has been a bit of regression in those 20 years as well, where a lot of people have fallen back into their sinful complacency again. And we needed to get our attention back on God, which, as I stated in my very first podcast last year, is why he allowed the COVID-19 virus to inflict upon us. I mean, look how since the virus took hold, how many have returned back to worshiping the Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. Now, the big takeaway here, as I come to the end of this podcast, is that we, as a society, need to keep our focus on God. We need to please God and be obedient to him in order to fulfill his blessed will he has for each one of us. We need to learn how to count on God and keep counting on God for our mere everyday existence. He wants us to honor him. He wants us to worship him. I mean, he loves us and he needs us just as much as we need him. And we can't let our guard down here concerning the love and honor we must have for God, especially in this day and age where there are more evil people planning more evil things to destroy us. Not unlike what happened 20 years ago today. So what's it going to be? Are you just going to float along through life thinking everything is just hunky-dory, putting God and Jesus Christ on the back burner as you go through your sinful life? Or are you going to finally wake up and realize that you need the Heavenly Father and his only begotten Son now more than ever? Thank you for watching. See you all later. Goodbye.